One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown and welcome to One Question, where we highlight executive leaders in college athletics. Our guest today is Coach Gary Goff. Coach Goff is the head football coach at Valdosta State. Greetings, Gary. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Now, Coach, you're a former head coach at Tiffin University in Ohio, where you were there from 2011 until last season, which was 2018, and you brought the team to its first winning season in 10 years. That had to feel good to turn around a program like that, right?
It absolutely did. It took some time, but and one day I'll write a book about it because some things that happened there that you can't even imagine.
It took you about 5 years to get to a winning season, right? So it was a slow, methodical, organized way of bringing success to a program that hadn't seen success.
Yeah, correct. It did. That was my first head coaching job, obviously. And, when you get there, you think you're going to have these magical X's and O's and win real fast and see what the next step might be. But I realized real fast that that's not exactly how it works. And even if Bill Walsh himself would have been hired in that situation, I'm not sure he could have won right off the bat. So there was a lot of issues inside that program.
Well, you've been 20 years in coaching, so you've obviously seen a lot of leadership. You've seen a lot of good or bad, right? Leadership. You've seen a lot of ways that people have done things. And what I know from working close to the coaching profession is that coaches share a lot of ideas and, try to figure out how to implement and find the best way for things to be successful at their program. I wonder about your approach to organizational leadership. When you got to Tiffin midway through and then as you found your groove in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I had no intention of getting into coaching. I got my business degree and kind of got in the corporate world right out of college and thought that's how I was going to make a living, and realized real fast that, I'd rather do something I absolutely love if I'm going to work 80, 90 hours a week. So I think my business background helped me into coming up with the plan on how we're going to change the program around. And then, like you just mentioned, I've played for and worked for some great coaches. So learning from their experiences, some of the do's and don'ts, I think also helped, lead me down that path. And, I'm naturally probably a anal person as far as how I want things done, and not saying that's always the right way, and I know my flaw, but, I think just sticking to the plan, sticking to what you see is right. But I learned early on that it really wasn't as much as the coaching on the field as it was as the coaching off the field. And, I had to change that culture there, which was very difficult because they were used to losing. They expected to lose. There was just no excitement within. So, to be honest with you, I started doing some research. I realized that I was not maybe trained myself to how do I train leaders, how do I change a culture. That's just something that coaches say a lot, but what kind of actual training have they gotten? So I brought in this company for 6 years. It's and it's basically called theprogram.org. It's military veterans, and a lot of them have received Purple Hearts, but they came in and worked with me first, then my staff, and then the program. But it started from the top, and I'll never forget, they asked me what my mission statement was, and I'd kind of hem and hawed around it and gave him this nice paragraph of what it was, and he looked at me, he says, well, Coach, that's for interview. He goes, your players can't recite that, can they? And I said, no, they can't. He goes, right there's a big problem if you're going to establish this organization, from top to bottom. So we revamped simple mission statement, and now that mission statement I carry with me here at Valdosta State, and that's for us to win both in the classroom and on the playing field through our core values. So then we set up our core values and what they are and what they exactly mean to us. And so we set those core values as tough attitude and discipline. And then for each value, we have standards, 3 standards to each of those values that, we teach the team and the coaching staff, and then we're going to hold each other accountable to those values. So we kind of implemented that, and during the same time, we started being very careful of the type of student athlete that we recruited. Of course, we're like every coach. We want the biggest, fastest, and strongest players we could possibly recruit. However, I thought that that's not always the most important thing. And if that young man's character doesn't fit to our standards and our values, then we should pass on him and maybe go with somebody else who we still think's a good athlete, but they really fit what type of culture we're trying to establish there. So, we did that after my second year there, and then third year we started seeing a little bit of improvement. Fourth year, more improvement. Fifth year, first winning season the school had since becoming a Division II member, and then it continued to grow each year. But changing that culture there was very hard. But once we got it rolling, it just started snowballing, and they started believing in one another, and it was really gratifying as I had people graduate. Those young men coming back years later saying, "Coach, I sit at work every day, and I still hear you in the back of my mind, and I'll see somebody complaining about their job, or I'll see somebody showing up late, and they'll say the first thing that comes to my mind, Coach, is tough, and one of those standards is 100% effort 100% of the time." So, that made me feel good, because sometimes you don't know if they're really retaining it all, but that's what it's all about. Yeah, we want to win and win on the field, but we also want to help develop better young men for society.
Right. And you talk about the program, Eric Kapitulik, I believe his name is.
Cap, yep.
Yeah, I think I've met him before in my travels throughout my career. I wonder, you talked about coming up with that mission statement or that purpose, and then coming up with those core values. What was your process to come? That's important, right? The details in terms of how did you come up with those? Did you include the student athletes? Was it you and the staff? Is it something you went back home and come up with a kind of a framework and then brought it to the staff? Tell me about that process.
A little bit of all the above, to be honest. We sat in there for about 2 full days, just throwing words on the board, ideas on the board. What does it mean to each and every coach in the room? What does winning actually mean? And then, of course, I'd take it home, and my wife's an English professor, so I'd talk to my wife about it a little bit, get her thoughts on it. I talked to even a couple of our vice presidents and athletic directors at the time about some of it, and then we kind of just kept, chiseling it down to where it's not got too much verbiage in it, and it's not so broad, but we came all the way back down to saying, if we are winning both in the classroom and on the playing field, what else matters? And through our values, obviously character and everything, but I think every parent sends their child off to college and wants to have them have a great experience playing. And if there's a chance for them to get to the professional level, then that's great. But at the end of the day, I think every parent really wants their child to go off to school and graduate and have that degree. So it was a good week or two of just brainstorming and throwing ideas up there and trying to get, the right pieces.
Right. What I see with athletics directors is when they finally get the pieces in place, they kind of have this big unveiling, right? Introducing it to the student athletes, introducing it to other people on campus, introducing it to the public. Did you do that, or did you just implement and say, guys, this is what we're doing, let's go? Tell me about that when you actually came to the final decision on it.
Yeah, every time we had any of this training on campus, I always invited the athletic director, the president, and then any vice president that was interested. And the school I was at, we're a big criminal justice school. So, there's a lot of people that had some interest in, okay, let's see what this leadership training is about. And, so, I thought that was good. So they saw that, we were trying to make a difference in these young men, rather than having that typical stereotype as, they're just football players. They're just here for football. 'Cause there's so much more. And these young men, as you know, they work extremely hard to not only play the game, but to be a good student athlete. So we involved everybody a little bit. Kind of the unveiling of how I approached the team. Obviously, we put it on every wall and T-shirts and the wristbands, but I took it a step further. If you're in the military, you can be coined, where they give you a coin with the values on it. So I made some coins. I made about 200 coins, and on those coins, it had our school's logo. It had on the back of it our tough attitude and discipline, our there, as we call them, our dragon values. Now here there are blazer values. But if the coaches all voted on, Brown he's a good leader for us. He's tough, he's attitude, he's got discipline on and off the field, and he's holding himself accountable and others accountable. If that was a unanimous vote on that staff, we would coin that young man. So in front of the entire team, we'd put a little highlight video of that individual, and we'd pull him up and tell everybody how proud we were for doing the right things and being a leader, and then we would actually honor him with giving him a coin. That's how we do our captains. We don't do the popularity vote contest, but we coin them. So the coin holders, as we call them, are the first ones to get their gear, to get on the bus, to eat. They're the voice that can come to the coach and decide, hey, we don't want to wear this uniform, we want to wear this uniform. So, we empower them a little bit. So there's some, ownership of the team and decisions being made of those leaders, and that's part of leadership training. And if that young man, falls, offline or whatnot, then we could take the coin away. So that's kind of how we unveiled it to the team and made it something special.
And then once the players start adapting, you mentioned 2 and 3 and 4 years down in the line, they start teaching it to the younger guys, right? And then it becomes a machine, a part of the culture. That's interesting. I wonder now, so, January, you get named the head football coach at Valdosta State. Completely different situation, right? This is an undefeated team, won, played in 4 and won a national championship, Division II. And you come in and your second head coaching job, obviously you don't want to approach it the same way, but I think there is something to be said about a mission and about core values. Tell me about your approach to organizational leadership and how it's different in the situation here at Valdosta State.
Yeah, I mean, it's night and day, but similar. So, I don't know if I'm the luckiest man alive or not, but, I took over one of the worst programs in Division II. We were 165 out of 168 when I took over Tiffin. So there's not any expectations there, right? They just hope you can win a ball game. And now I'm taking over the number 1 program out of 165.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I spent a lot of time thinking about that, and how was I going to approach these young men here that, one, they're probably still a little hurt that their coaching staff that they just did the best you could ever possibly do is no longer here. And who's this new coach in town? Who's this new sheriff in town with doing things the way he wants to do them? And, he's never gone undefeated or won a national championship. So, what's he know? So that was my concerns right off the bat and how we're going to approach this team. But I still strongly believe in culture and these values, but they already had a winning culture here. So I kind of approached these guys from the other end of this leadership training. So one of the last things we did there at Tiffin is we created a flow chart, just like a corporation would do, starting with the CEO all the way down to, so it started with me at the top, and then my coordinators, then my position coaches, then every position had a position leader and a co-leader. And so we did that there, and it really helped kind of put the icing on the cake there at Tiffin. So when I came here, I knew, if I threw some crazy stuff at these guys like that, they might just sit there and, what is this about? So I slowly started pulling some of the older guys, some of the already, so-called leaders on the team here in one by one, and I'd bring my O-line player in and say, hey, what if I put you in charge of the O-line? What if I did that, and you're responsible for making sure they're dressed the right way every day, making sure they're on time every day. You're that position leader. And that young man would be, oh, coach, I'd like that. That's awesome. So I started doing that one by one within the team. And then by the time we got to spring practice, we presented them a flow chart. And not to say they thought it was their idea, but I kind of spoon-fed it to them, knowing where I was going to go with it. So, now in camp, we're getting ready for our first game tomorrow, but, we've been in camp for the last several weeks. If I want to throw them a curveball just to see how they're going to respond or act, I can just call or text a couple of my position leaders and tell them, hey, I need the entire team. We're going to practice at this time, and I need you in just helmets and gray shirts and black shorts. And, so they go and do that. Now, if they can't get everybody here or everybody's not dressed that way, then I pull those position leaders in and I talk to them about the importance of communication, paying attention to detail.
Accountability, right.
Accountability and everything. Yeah. So, I've kind of tried. I don't know if it's foolproof yet. I'll let you know here in about 6 months.
Yeah, right, exactly.
but we've approached it from the opposite end because I knew there was already a winning culture in place here.
Yeah, and it's important. What you talk about there is, and I do hear a lot of athletic directors say this, they come in and they listen and they see what the culture is in the beginning, especially at a place that is already successful, right? Let's see what they're doing. Why would I want to come in and mess up somebody that's already winning? But you still have to get it to a point to where it works for you. And it sounds like that's what you've done there at Valdosta State. Excellent, Coach. Well, good luck with your season. First year going in there at Valdosta State, and it sounds like you're putting things in place to find success. You found a way to try and get the guys to buy into you as their new leader and mentor and as head coach there. And I really appreciate you joining us here on One Question.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
That was Coach Gary Goff. He's the head football coach at Valdosta State. And of course, this is Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of the leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of One Question is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.